Hi, I'm Mia Friedman and welcome to No Filter. Scott Pape was just 35 years old when he and his wife Liz lost all their possessions in 2014. Everything. They lost everything. Every photograph, every item of clothing, every piece of furniture, every piece of paperwork, all of it. And as he stood there with Liz, looking at the charred remains of his house after the Victorian bushfires that devastated the area where they lived with their young family, Scott had an incredibly surprising reaction. Surprising even to himself. It would go on to be the basis for his extraordinary best-selling book, The Barefoot Investor, which was released less than a year ago and has topped the charts ever since. Have you read it? You should. Because Scott makes finance, well, if not actually sexy, then at least bearable, understandable, almost enjoyable. And when you talk to him about it or read his book, you actually find yourself getting excited about money, about saving it and spending it, and paying off your debts and even superannuation. Scott, quite simply, makes money cool. And he has some fantastic advice for women of all ages and at all life stages. You honestly have never met a more funny, lovely, relatable guy. He is terrific company and you just want to go and have a beer with him. If I drank beer, who even am I? This is the magic of Scott Pape. He makes you seriously consider things you never thought you could ever be into, like going on a finance date with him. Here's Scott.
Mia, how you going?
Hello, friend. I do believe congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Oh, well, as in for the 20-week scan, is that what we're talking about?
You and Kate Middleton.
Yes, this is it.
So that's really exciting news. How old are your other two?
4 and 2.
Oh, you're right on track.
I know. Bang.
Is this the last one?
No.
How many more?
The more you have, the happier you are, don't you think?
I wish you could talk to my husband. I really wanted to have 4, but he was probably happy with 1.
Yeah.
So I've just slipped a couple more in, so to speak. But with more children, I mean, do you budget for that?
Yeah, of course.
So you must know in your head how many you're going to have.
It was funny when we were actually getting married. We did the pre-marriage classes.
Yeah.
And they had that question, how many? And Liz said 2 and I said 5. And we knew that it was a discussion we're going to have. But, for me, honestly, it sounds like a cliche, but fatherhood has been the best thing that ever happened to me. I just absolutely adore my kids. And the more I can have, the happier I am.
Does your wife feel the same way?
Yeah. I mean, we're very sort of homely, sort of family orientated people. And I just love my boys. And we've got a big farm. So, yeah.
So you can just fill it with children.
That's it.
What about her and thinking about her career and all of that? Because obviously it impacts on her having the kids more than it does on you. Although you're at home and you share the parenting, right? Both of you?
Sure. We do. So Liz, when I met Liz, she was a producer on the project.
Was she your producer on the project?
She was my producer on the project. Can I just say that as the first time I ever met her was on the phone. And then I met her in the bottom floor of the Como at Channel 10. And I was talking to her and I came in as the finance guy in a ute with a dog in the back. And she looked at me. I was talking on the phone to her. She looked at me straight in the eye and then looked down thinking there's no way that's him. How's that? How's that for a story?
So it wasn't love at first sight for her.
No.
How old were you both back then?
That would have been... would that be 8-9 years ago? So yeah, she was. It was love at first sight for me. I was totally in love with her, but it just took a little while.
Are you the same age?
She's my producer. No, she's a bit younger than me.
And so you were in love, and how did you start dating?
We were actually set up at Channel 10. It was one of those things that, if it doesn't work out, it's kind of like, ooh. But when it does work out, it's like, oh, isn't that nice?
So you mean someone went, you should produce this guy because I think you guys will hit it off?
No, I think that we were put together because she's a good producer and I probably needed the help, let's be honest. But I remember being really nervous when she was producing me. And they're like, hey, he's single, you should really sort of talk to him. And we did.
So there's a method to my intrusive personal questions.
Sure.
In that you guys got serious, you got married and then started having kids?
We were pregnant when we were getting married. Mm-hmm. So it was a bit of a it was just one of those things that we decided that we would start, and yeah, she was pregnant when we got married.
It happens sometimes.
There was no shotgun.
In the back of the ute. So she was a producer at the project.
Yes, and still is, and is still working at the moment. Just does bits and pieces because we live on the farm. But it's really important for her to actually, continue working. Like, we work together, but it's important for her to have her own career, and I understand that.
How do you work together? In what way?
So she is my producer, and probably much like your husband, that, we're in this business together. So we employ people, we go the ups, the downs. She's been there really from the start of it being a business. And I can't think of anyone else that I want to be in business with.
So
she's way smarter than me.
The Barefoot Investor is a business, isn't it? I mean, it's you, but it's a business.
Yeah, and we employ about 12 people, most of them working mums. All of them got your latest book. All of them loved it, can I say. The majority of the people that work for me are working mums. So we are sort of dead time between 8:30 and 9 and 3:30 and 4. But what I have found, honestly, I know I'm talking to Mamma Mia here, but I've been through different staff, but I found that working mums tend to be the hardest workers that I've had because they just have to get shit done. They just got to get it done. And
they all work remotely during school hours.
We've got a totally remote team.
How does that work?
So we've got Slack. We've got. I just find that this whole idea of that you've got to watch people in order to see whether they're working, I just think that's such an outdated concept. So we're an online business. A lot of it's customer service because we run an investment newsletter, and the people that work because they're fans of what we do, and yeah, we just work really well.
Are there people that you employ that you've never met in person?
Sure. But, we're going to do a retreat and get to know each other and stuff like in real life. But yeah, there are people that I've employed that I've never met. But, I speak to them every day.
Okay, so I want to move to the fire.
Yes.
Which was a really pivotal point in your life. Tell me what happened.
So 2014 was this one particular day was the worst conditions since Black Saturday. And we have a really straight response when it comes to those Code Red days, and that is Liz and Louis at the time, our little baby at the time, went into the city. I went into the city as well, but one of my sheepdogs was locked up there and just locked up at the shearing shed. So I went back, and it's just one of those things that I don't think I ever really thought that I was in danger. Because I remember being at the farm, and I'm in the CFA, so I'm a volunteer firefighter. So I had my little banana suit on and my little pager, and it didn't go off. And what I didn't realise was I thought, hang on, there's a bit of smoke getting around. I thought what I'll do is just go and check out and see if there's any fire around the paddocks. And I jumped into my ute and I turned on the ABC, the radio, and it said it's too late to leave. You've got to take shelter now. It's too late to evacuate. So I did get out. I came back, and I remember at this point, I remember being with Liz in our Land Cruiser. Louis was, I don't know, about 1 year old at the time. I remember driving into what was our gates because it was all burnt. And I remember just as we got through our gates, there was a sheep that stopped us in the middle of the road, and it just stood there and looked at us, and it was burnt to death. Basically, you could see its rib cage. It was all bloodied, and it was breathing in and out, and it was in shock. And I could hear this just bang, bang, bang. And what had happened was there was the Department of Primary Industries had actually come onto the farm and was shooting all our animals because they'd all burnt, or most of them. And so we kept driving, and we drove down the hill to where our house was, and there was nothing there. Like literally it was just a pile of rubble. And I remember my wife started screaming, and then Louis started screaming. And at that point, a Channel 7 News chopper was coming across. And so at that time, I was the Channel 7 money guy. So, they had a scoop, And so the chopper was hovering and there was dust everywhere, and our cows that were alive were falling over because of all the commotion, and that they had badly burnt hooves. And I just remember thinking to myself at that point in time, with my wife screaming, my kids screaming, and I've got all this crap, and I'm looking, everything I've owned is burnt. I remember the first thing that came to me, I looked myself in the rearview mirror and said, I've got this, I can do this. And I honestly think, that sounds like a bit of a cliche, but I honestly believe that the belly of this book was written in that moment. Because my view is this, everyone is going to face a financial fire at some way, shape or form, at some point, right? So it could be your house burning down. It could be your husband walking out on you. It could be losing your job. It could be going to the doctor and being told that things aren't okay. You are going to, it could be looking at your superannuation statement and going, I don't know how the hell I'm going to retire. But either way, you're going to face that at some stage. And so my view is that I wanted you to get to the point where I was, where I said, I've got this, I can do this. And that is more important than the car you drive or the house that you live in. Being able to say, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, right? And I think with the book, it's not a whole get rich quick or, 4-hour work week or anything like that. It's just basically saying, I want to keep you safe. Because when that moment happens to you, the only thing that really matters is that you can say, I'm going to be okay. And that's what I could say.
How could you say that? Tell me the pieces of that thought process.
Well, I mean, I think because I'd always been really conservative, like that's my whole gig. Like I don't like being in debt. I like to have savings. I'm really proud of the fact that, I've been able to sort of provide for my family. It's really important. Like at an emotional level, it's really important to me. And so I paid off my home, and I knew that I had my mojo there in a separate account. And when that happened, I was able to drain the money and spend it and say, we're going to be okay. So I knew we would be okay financially.
What was going through your mind as you looked at the rubble? Were you straight away thinking...
Do you know what was actually going through my mind? What was going through my mind is that I never got to meet my my father-in-law. My wife's dad died when she was 18, so I never got to meet him. And I knew that we had some of the last photos of him in the house. This is before social media. We didn't have some of the letters, some of the pictures, those things. Liz's wedding dress. The toys for Louis, he didn't. We left there, and literally he only had a nappy. That was it. Like everything was gone. Like literally everything. But you can buy all that other crap. The most important thing was, how does my wife explain to my sons or her sons who their granddad was when there's just no pictures of him left? We've been able to get a couple, but it's those things that are irreplaceable. That's what I was thinking about.
And were you thinking logically about, okay, because what happens after something like that? Like, where do you sleep? What do you wear? You don't have medication, scripts, documents.
At the top of at the start of the book, I donate. I'm donating 10% of my royalties to the Financial Counsellors Association. So let me tell you what happens when you lose everything. So you go, basically it was a disaster zone, so you couldn't get in to my farm area. It was all locked off. And then you shunted to an emergency place, and I went in there and everyone was sort of, I'd lost my house, I was, pretty upset. And I sat down with a financial counsellor. And I said, I don't want any money. I just need to, in order to actually get through to get to my house, I actually needed to get something signed off. And she put her hand on me and said, I know who you are, but you're just going to need someone to help you. You've just lost your house. You've got a little baby. You've got a wife. You just need someone to help you. And I said I would repay the favour, and I think I have with the sales of this book. So 10% of the money goes to not-for-profit financial counsellors. If you are in financial strife, the best people to call, blatant plug, is the Financial Counsellors Association. It's 1-800-007-007. When you flee your partner and you've got no money, these are the people you call. If you get struck down with an illness, these are the people you call. These are the good guys.
So because financial counsellors have had a bit of a bad rap lately.
Financial planners have. Financial counsellors have not. Financial planners are the guys that, you go to the bank and they go, hey, would you like a financial plan with that? And the answer is always, no, I would not. Financial counsellors are paid for by the government and, they're set up by the salvos. And when you are at your lowest ebb, right, these are the people that stand beside you.
Where did you spend that first night after the fire?
I stayed at my farmhand's house, and Liz stayed in the city, and then we rented a place in Romsey, in a little area that we lived in. We had people who were readers of the Barefoot Investor. We actually got a fully furnished house because they were moving, and we stayed there, and that was cool because we literally didn't have
anything. A toaster.
Nothing.
Pair of shoes.
Nothing. Yep. And the funny thing is, I reckon for the next 12 months, I think I wrote about this, we didn't buy anything. We got this big, huge check. Like, the insurance company sent us this big check. It's like, that sliding doors moment where you go, all of it gone, and you get this one big check.
Like for how much? Like for $100,000?
More than that.
Yeah, right.
Because it's for everything that we ever owned, contents, all the rest of it. And you think, I would just go absolutely crazy. Yeah. It'd be like, I'm going on the shopping trip of a lifetime. Yeah. No, we didn't. It changes your concept of stuff. When everything goes, I'm not saying that I'm like a Tibetan monk that doesn't buy shit anymore, but I'm just saying once you lose everything, you go, you know what? None of that stuff really puts it in its perspective.
All right. So I want to ask you, first of all, the book is a phenomenal success.
Mm-hmm.
Did that take you by surprise?
Not as much as it took my publisher by surprise, I think. I thought that we would sell about 20,000 copies. Because I think about a bestseller.
Which is a bestseller.
It's like 15,000, 20,000. I was not expecting it to be... I think we've sold over 360,000 copies now. No one expects that. I didn't expect that.
Do you know what's funny is that all the authors I know, myself included, are always shocked by how few books they sell. And I think that kind of what's happened to you is sort of what people naively almost expect. But writing books is so hard and takes really so long, and it's so lonely, and it requires so much work. And then yours has just hit a nerve. Tell me how it's changed your audience. Like, I mean, everyone's bought your book basically. When I talk to publishers, all they can talk about is your book. What's been the market for it? Just everyone, really.
Yeah, it's weird. People ask me about sort of this secret sauce or marketing plan. There was no marketing plan. It's just been really viral. I don't understand it. A lot of people, we had a pre-order campaign, and I think we sold, I don't know, it was like 30 or 40,000 in a weekend.
Which is extraordinary.
Which was big. That was big. And I thought, I'm probably there. That's kind of, I can go home now. I'm done.
Well, that's like double a bestseller.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was, and that was
weekend.
because I have a little community who, literally for the last, 13 or 14 years, I've been answering their questions week in, week out, and, I've sort of helped a lot of people that I didn't really, just to help people, just to try and be helpful. And I think if there is one lesson that I maybe have learnt, it's that idea that you do things like that and things come back to you. Of course, this has been crazy, but yeah, I mean, I've tried to be helpful to people over a long time.
I want to ask you about date night, first of all.
Yes.
You have very sexy date nights, don't you, Scott?
Yeah, I do. I'm having one tonight, actually.
How's it going to go?
We coincide this with the Reserve Bank meeting. How hot is that? How hot is that?
Oh, sexy talk.
So we have it first Tuesday of each month, Liz and I. And it was just one of those things that really sounds really wanky. And whenever I talk to people
that just sounds really nerdy.
Yeah, well, when I talk to people who haven't read the book, they're like, they think I'm joking. And I'm like, no, this is serious. And it's true, though, because when I met Liz, she's an incredibly smart person. right? But she's just not a money person. It's not that she likes spending and stuff. It just doesn't float her boat. So what I knew was that when we when we got engaged, we actually had to sit down together and talk about it, and I kind of strategized how would I do this, and I stumbled onto this thing called a date night where we would actually go out. We went to the Romsey pub, I comb my hair, she gets dressed up, and I just explained to her
interest rates.
No, not interest rates. She doesn't care about any of that. But talk to her. I wrote on the back of a serviette how we manage our money, like really simple. Not because she's a simple person. She's very intelligent. But the more complicated you make it, the more likely the person that's not reading my book is going to go, nah, it's all too hard.
Yeah.
Right? So what we did is then we started talking about where our money was going, what was important to us, what our values were. And again, when I looked at it is, I've got, I don't know, like 27,000 questions from people that have on my email that people have asked me questions. And there are themes. And one of the themes are young women. Women get married, have kids, and suddenly go from being this strong, independent, financially successful, financially independent woman to now being stuck at home with a baby with potentially a husband who's saying, well, this is my money and I'm going to give you handouts. I'm going to give you an allowance. So you go back to being like a teenager. And so for me, when Liz is a very successful TV producer, when she went to have Louis, what we realised was that it's not my money, it's not her money, it's our money, right? And in order for us not to kill each other, happy wife, happy life, we actually had to sit down and say, this is our plan for our money. And we share the same bank account. And so we have that communication. And I strongly, strongly believe that if you are in, second marriages are different. Like if you're, I don't know, worth millions of dollars and you marry some guy and you want to, that's different. But if you are a couple of the same sort of means and you don't share your money, there's always, generally speaking, there's always something going on. There's always an underlying issue. Yeah,
it's interesting. My husband and I had separate bank accounts when the first time around, and then we split up and then we got back together again. And then, because I suppose I felt that sharing a bank account was sort of giving up my independence, potentially making me vulnerable. I was also concerned about too much transparency. Like I didn't want to have him knowing everything that I spent.
Sure. Liz and I get around that where we share the same account. And we have a rule which says for us now, it's $400. She can spend whatever she wants. I can spend whatever I want. I don't really shop that much, but she can spend whatever she wants and I can spend whatever I want up to that limit. Anything over that, we talk about it. And that's not to ask permission, right? Because I don't ask permission in my marriage. We talk about it. Do we want to spend? And we've never really had a fight about what we're spending our money on, but it's just that idea of keeping the communication going. Because your money, what you do with your money determines your values. It's just, so for us, it's just all about communication.
So if I was Liz, I would put something on lay-by or after-pay and just in installments under $400. No, I don't pay anything that expensive.
80% of marriages break down because of money, according to Relationships Australia. And monogamy, but mainly money.
And break that down a little bit further. In your experience, what aspect of that? Is it one partner spending more than the other? Is it one partner trying to control the other through money? Control generally. And generally what happens, what I came back to, there are two really sad situations that I see. The first one is when, marriage mortgage midgets happens really quickly. Really Say that again?
Marriage mortgage midgets, right? So it's a real pressure cooker, a few years. Generally it happens pretty quickly. In that space. You're getting married, you get the mortgage, you buy the house, and then you're having kids, and then suddenly you wake up and you go, hang on a minute, I don't have any money, I've got this kid, I don't feel like I've got any independence, and my husband, for instance, is the one who's working, so therefore I don't feel like I have any control over that. And so I find a lot of women talk to me about that. And then conversely, I find a lot of women who are in their 50s who have broken up with their husbands, maybe didn't go so well with the divorce, and they're struggling to learn about how to manage their money. Or even worse is women who are in their 70s whose husbands have always managed the money, and now they're trying to work out, he's gone, and they're trying to work out how am I going to, how do I invest? What do I do with all this money? So for me, it's more about the communication. It's not about hating on guys. It's not about hating on women. It's just saying that if you are in a family, you've got to share your money. You've got to talk about it.
And it's interesting what you said about older women as well. I do some work with Vinnie's, and the fastest growing group of homeless people are women over 55.
Sure, it's the hidden homelessness.
Yeah, for many of those reasons that you mention.
Yep.
Splurge cards.
Yes.
Talk about splurge cards for me.
Well, it's the idea, again, everything that I write about in this book, I do, right? So for me, before I met my wife, I had like all these different accounts. I loved it. I love a spreadsheet. I freaking love a spreadsheet. My wife?
Same.
Not so much.
More dirty talk.
Yeah, but so what I did was we worked out, I can't stick to a budget, right? I've never been able to stick to a budget. I'm just not that way inclined.
Really?
But no, I can't do it. I've never been able to do it. And I used to feel really bad, like they wouldn't let me in the geek convention.
I was going to say.
Because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
No. But for me, what I did was I just had decided that, we're going to keep things really simple. Liz and I wrote our financial plan on the back of a serviette at the Romsey pub, where there's basically 3 buckets. And what we worked out was that 10% of our money could basically go to splurge, whatever we really wanted to spend our money on. Another 10% was smile, so that's sort of longer term holidays and stuff that you wanted to do. I've just never really met anyone that has been able to, it's like being on a diet for like 5 years. It just doesn't work. It's not the way life works, especially when you've got kids. So what we wanted to do is to actually feel like we were getting ahead. We had these different cards, and we've got them, and it works very, very well. And apparently, I'm told you guys have written about it, where it's kind of like a bit of a cult where people have got splurge written on their cards and stuff.
Yeah, it's true. They do. And you'll go and use one, and someone will go, I've got one of those too. Barefoot Investor.
Yeah.
It's the Barefoot cult. We've got a lot of people in our office who've read and loved your book, who are very disappointed that you are not in the Sydney office today. What's your splurge? What do you splurge on?
Farm stuff.
Woo! More dirty talk.
My splurge is basically that. And date nights with my wife, really.
But aren't date nights just at the pub with a napkin and a pen?
It all adds up, Mia. It all adds up.
Cash. I don't have it anymore. And this is
hard.
a really big, weird thing. And I've noticed I'd say in the last 12 months, I used to go to the ATM all the time, but now I literally never do. So my children do not see cash. They do not see it in my wallet. They do not see me handing over cash or getting change. Because everything's just tap and go, tap and go, tap and go.
Yeah.
What has been the effect of that on all of us as adults, but also what do you think the effect of that is on children, and how do we teach them about what money is and the value of it?
The casinos had this worked out decades ago, and that was that idea that they take your money and they give you these little plastic chips. The reason they give you the plastic chips is that it disassociates yourself. You are not spending rent. You are not blowing your mortgage repayment or your kid's inheritance. It's a disassociating factor. And there have been studies that have shown that people spend more money when they're swiping. Yeah, that's been the issue. As far as how do you teach kids, I write about this in the book, and I'm writing about this for my next book. It's a well-known thing, but it's called the jam jars. So you have jam jars. Kids don't learn by you telling them stuff. They're visual. They learn by seeing. So you have 3 jam jars: spend, save, and give. And you put the coins for little kids. You put the coins in there. You get them to do some work, and you show them. So for me, that's sort of how you shape values, because it's not about the pocket money. It's about resilience. It's about raising generous kids. These are the things that you want to teach them. As far as cash, I have gone through times when I have had a lot of cash that I have spent just as a bit of a geeky sort of study. I'm like you now. I swipe or tap. I don't swipe. Tap all the time.
And do you think that's bad, or do you just think that's life?
I think that's just life. But then again, that comes back to that idea of having the different accounts and automating it so that you don't have to think. So for me, it's even more important when it's frictionless. You're tapping. And these days now with my accounts, I've got them, one of them on my mobile phone. you know, so I don't even have to have a wallet anymore. So I think that's the way it's going, but it's even more important then to automate it so that you don't have to think about it. And I got to say that even though people hang crap on me about, you know, the buckets and all that sort of stuff, it's just that idea. If you don't have to think about it, if you can set up these accounts once and then they just work, and you know that you're slowly but surely getting towards your goal, and you know you're sitting with your partner, or if you're single by yourself, but you feel like you're getting ahead, it's just one less thing you have to worry about. You know.
With date nights, what if you don't have a date?
You take me, as in a book form.
Yes,
Seriously,
I do
it's
love
about
that part in the
carving.
book.
It's about carving out time. Because everybody, you can read the book and go, hey, I'm really excited about this, and put the book down and never do it again. But if you schedule on your phone, you know, for us, first Tuesday of every month, Reserve Bank meeting, we're going to go and do it. I look forward to it. I'm really excited tonight. I'm going out for a date with a really beautiful woman. I get to spend time with her. There's not going to be any kids there. You know, we get to actually be like adults. We get to go home, you know, around 9:30.
Do you actually talk about what the Reserve Bank did today?
She just does not care.
No,
she does
good.
not care. We don't have any debt, so she doesn't care.
Most people do, though. Most people have debt, don't they?
They do. Well, Australians, we've got sort of $2 of debt for every sort of dollar of income. I had a meeting with the Prime Minister. Humble brag. How's that? Just dropping that in there.
Drop that name.
Drop that in there. And I said to him, you know, does that worry you that Australians have some of the highest levels of household debt in the world? You know, it keeps us really vulnerable to the economy downturn, downturn in the economy, or raising interest rates. He didn't really have much to say about it, but you know, he sort of just gave me.
Have you ever had debt?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I obviously had to borrow to buy the farm and stuff, but I'm just somebody again who doesn't like to have debt. I like to have cash, and I like to not be paying off some bank executive's BMW. And I know that there's a whole group of finance guys that say the more debt that you're in, the more wealth you can build. It's all about borrowing. And you know, my view is debt always makes things more complicated. It does. It always makes things more complicated. It always makes things more stressful. And if you can do without it, you should. Now, that makes me, I guess I'm kind of like a wimpy finance guy, because I should be like, you know, here's how to buy 35 properties and, you know, retire when you're 35. But the truth is, it's all bullshit. Most of that never works out. You're ramping up the risk. And for me, the most important thing is making sure I'm safe and secure and my family is safe and secure.
That emphasis on safe and secure, which comes through in the book a lot.
Yes.
Did you have that before the fire?
Yeah, I've always had it. I grew up in a little town called Oyen. Have you ever heard of Oyen, Maya?
No. Sounds like onion.
Oyen is a little town in Mallee, Victoria. I think it's got about 1,200 people. But my whole family are from a little country town. And I don't know whether it's a cliche or not, but I've always been really conservative. I've always enjoyed saving. I've always enjoyed investing. And I've just never been one to look at my big car or look at my big house or look at my flashy stuff. It's just not something that's interesting to me. I would much rather... I'm the champion of the guy who pays his bills, looks after his family, and lives just a humble life. You know, I don't need to be, you know, driving around in a flash car.
So what do you do with all the spoils?
You know, the whole thing, my view is that your kids don't really give a shit about the house you live in, the car you drive, the letters after your name. All they care about is spending time with you. That's my view. So what do I spend it on? I mean, I've got a farm, so it doesn't make much money, but it's an awesome place for kids to grow up. It's just awesome.
And in some ways, you buy time, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you've bought yourself time with your family by not having to go and work in the city or...
You know, I was working at Channel 7 when the fires came through, and I now no longer work at Channel 7. And I now spend, at that time, I was travelling from the farm, which is about 50 minutes out of Melbourne, every day. I was going in. And now I no longer do that, and I spend the majority of my time on the farm with the boys.
Scott, what's the smartest thing that a single woman can do? with her money.
The smartest thing a single woman can do with her money is to understand that a man is not a financial plan, that you don't have to wait around for some event to happen, because Romeo could turn up in a leased BMW and be more shit at money than you. So it's that idea of saying, you know what, I know this sounds really, really silly and trivial.
Sounds awesome.
But the idea of actually having a bank account that doesn't charge you fees, it sounds trivial, right? But it's just a little boost. It's like, you know what? I did it. I'm actually taking steps. I'm being smart with my money. And every time I do it, I feel a little bit of a tingle that, you know, hey, I'm actually getting my shit sorted, you know, and it's small steps. And it's just building that confidence little by little, these little date nights, these little things, these little scripts that I give in the book that you can do, that you can save yourself on your mortgage, or that you can, you know, have some mojo or whatever it is, or sort out your super or sort out your insurance. It's building up self-confidence that says no matter what happens, whether I get married, whether I don't get married, whether I get divorced, I can sort this out. So for me, that's, you know, the best thing I would say is don't wait.
And what do you say to women who say, I'm just not good with money. I just don't understand money. I can't speak money.
I don't think that's true, because my view is that, you know, I lay out a pretty simple plan in my book that will lead you to safety if you do it. And my view is that maybe that's fear talking. And the idea for me is that if you just start with those steps, you will build with a glass of wine and garlic bread in your hand, you'll actually become more confident. And that's what I've seen. That's why the book has sold so many copies, because people get it, they do it, they feel that feeling of, I'm going to be okay, and I feel self-confident in an area where I have felt a lot of fear, and then they buy it for their friends.
It's about confidence, isn't it?
It is about confidence. And that, you know, the funny thing is it flows through to other areas of your life.
I once knew a guy who made his wife enter every cent that she spent in a spreadsheet. And I told him that was a little bit messed up. And
weird.
He said, why is that messed up? And I said, it's ridiculously controlling and unhealthy.
Yeah.
And he said, but she can spend whatever she wants. I don't care. She can spend whatever she wants. She just has to enter it in the spreadsheet.
There's deeper issues going on there.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what are some of the red flags that the mistakes that women make within relationships? I mean, there's that thing of sexually transmitted debt. But is it basically just relinquishing their power?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it, there are a lot of female financial advisors or experts that say that women should have like a getaway fund. And my view with that, you know, you can do whatever you want, but my view is that if you've got a getaway fund or a getaway car, you're going to get away eventually. And I don't, you know, for me, we're all in this together. You know, we're in it together. We're a team.
Until you're not, though.
Until you're not. But then when you're not, well, then you've got the ability, the courts can decide, you know, have the division of assets and stuff. But for me, if you're committing to a relationship, and I know this is sort of making me sound a little bit like Dr. Phil, you know, you go all in, you know, and you share money, but you make sure that one partner doesn't control the other. That's my view, that we both have one vote. And we both decide what we're going to do with our money. That would be me. The second one is that often what you find is that women, and I get hate mail. Like, you think you get hate mail? I get hate mail when I talk about this.
Scott, who hates you? Like, how could anyone hate you? You're adorable.
Oh no. There's I get lots. The more copies of this I sell, the more crazy people. Are
you kidding me? Because I just look at you and I think, wouldn't it be lovely to be Scott and just have everyone love you, and you're on the cover of your book with your dog and your beautiful wife's in the background with the kids, and you've got the sun in your face and the rolling hills, and I just think, wouldn't it be great to be loved?
Okay, well, so now I'll explain why people dislike me, because I say basically what I have found in answering a lot of questions is that women are more, when it comes to investing, they're more they lean towards safety and security. Right. And I think that's got something to do with the fact that maybe they're having kids and they value safety and security. And what I find, and it is an overgeneralization, but men tend to be more risk-taking. You know, it's the ego. I want to earn a lot of money and I want to make my mark in the world. And I think people hate it when I say that, especially women.
But there are lots of studies that prove that the global financial crisis wouldn't have happened if there'd have been more women on trading floors, because women don't.
Women
take
are better
as many
investors.
risks.
Women are better investors.
And people hate you for saying that.
That is another study. But, I guess for me it's that a lot of what I've found is that some men have made really dumb decisions and their wives have known about it in their guts and said, you really probably shouldn't be buying 4 investment properties, or this investment seems too good to be true, but they didn't speak up. And again, even though I am the Barefoot Investor, I sit there and talk to my wife about the investments that we're making. I talk to her about it. Again, not because, it's just because we're in it together. So it's that idea of backing yourself. And I find that's another thing that females or women tend not to. So I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to speak my mind. But a lot of personal finance comes down to common sense.
Yeah, that's true. And then during divorce, a mistake that I see a lot of women make is that they just want things to be over. And particularly if they're the ones that have ended the relationship, they won't fight for what they're owed.
Maybe. I mean, the big mistake that I find with people who get divorced, women that get divorced, is they're too focused on the house and keeping the house because that's the stability, right? And that's where the kids are, and that's where the kids have grown up, and that's where the schools are, and that's where their friends are. My view, it's not about the house. It's about the dining room table, right? Because what I mean is that women, a lot of women that I look after, that I help, will actually get the house, but they can't afford it. They can't afford, they're on a single income and they get the house, but they're like working around the clock and they're stressed out and they're freaked out and they don't have time to sit down with their kids around the dining room table at night because they're so busy working and stressing and, this major life event has happened. And what I try and say to women who are in that situation is it's about the dining room table. It's about being able to sit down with your children, who are the most important people in going through this, to spend time to be able to clearly look at them and say, everything's going to be okay, I got this. Rather than saying, I'm going to keep the house, I'm going to be Wonder Woman, I'm going to make it all happen. And eventually it breaks down. And a lot of the time they end up selling the house because it's just too much of a burden. So for me, that is the number one problem that I find with women that they'll make in divorce. Get rid of the house. You probably can't afford it in those situations. Focus on the dining room table, not the house.
So sell the house and split the
proceeds. Every relationship is different. But, if you are going from 2 incomes down to 1, something's got to give, and you're going through an emotional trauma yourself and your kids need you, it's not about the house. It's about the dining room table. It's
about investing your time, having the
with
time to be with your kids.
Yeah, and you've got emotional stress, you've got financial stress. Financial stress, Deakin University found was akin to physical torture. Don't discount how much of a burden that is. So I think for women, especially who are getting divorced, dudes are going to hate this. You don't have guys that listen to this podcast.
No, none.
Awesome.
Are you retired?
No.
Do you want to be retired?
No, I never want to retire.
Why?
Because I enjoy what I do. I think I'm useful, and I'm really interested in what I'm doing at the moment, which is my next book is about raising financially
literate
strong kids, and I'm helping schools that are lower socioeconomic schools and helping them turn their finances around and helping parents and stuff. So I feel like I'm kind of useful. I don't think I would, you see those guys, I retired when I'm 35, and it's like, you're an asshole, Why are you running Facebook ads then? Why are you working so hard? You do it because I'll admit I have been able to use my time the way I want, which is I get to run my business really from my farm and I get to hang out with my kids, but I don't ever want to retire. I mean, they say that the 2 most dangerous years of your life are the year born and the year you retire.
Oh.
So you get a lot of these guys, if there are guys listening, where, you're like, hey, I've got $2 million in super and I'm about to retire. They are sometimes the most miserable sacks.
Yeah. Because
they've been told that they've won the lottery, right? They've got all this super, and then they retire, they go on the trip to Europe, and then they're like, what else do I do? You've got to be giving back or doing something.
More and more women are starting their own businesses.
Yes.
I do a bit of a thing called Lady Startup on my social pages where I try to support women entrepreneurs who are starting their own businesses. You must see this more and more. Are there some advice that you would have for women who are thinking about starting their own businesses? Because women often do it because they want a more flexible lifestyle.
Sure.
I would suggest that you've never worked as hard as you're going to work if you're about to start your own business.
Yeah. It's like having a child.
Yeah, just for some R&R. What are the most important things for women to know if they're starting their own business?
I think the first thing is to understand just how much of a commitment it is. And again, I work with most of my staff are mums with young kids. And I think, the first thing is just how much of a struggle it is to actually set up your own business and make a go of it. Because most businesses fail. Let's be honest, most businesses fail. But I write about this in my book. It's that idea of swinging on the trapeze, of doing something freelance and getting your skills up, getting your confidence up, and saying, is this something that I want to devote my time to? Because I don't know about you, Mia, but the thing that I have learned as I've had a family is that idea of energy, right? And emotional energy. You've only got so much time in the day in order to achieve all the things that you can. And you write about this in your book. It's true.
Thank you, Scott. I'm so glad.
It's true. No, it is true. And it's just that idea that it's a huge commitment to make sure that it's something, start easy and then increase into it as it if you enjoy it.
I talk about starting it as a side hustle, right?
Yes.
And don't necessarily give up your day job and throw every egg in that basket. Was that?
Sure.
I mean, I didn't mean to be giving financial advice, but was that kind of the right thing to be saying? Is that
that's
what
exactly
you would say?
That's exactly what I do. And I always say a lot of people are looking for, especially people in their early 20s, they're looking for this business that they want to start up. When I started Barefoot, I was first working at the stock exchange, then I started working as a stockbroker, and I did it at night, and I worked really, really hard. And my girlfriend at the time did not understand it. That wasn't Liz. It takes it takes a lot of effort in order to build it. And I think it's even harder when you've got kids, to be honest with you, because you've just got conflicting priorities. Having said that, again, I'll just put in there because all the ladies at work are going to listen to this. I've got the best team ever.
Brownie points.
Yeah.
Where did the Barefoot part come from?
It was all about kicking off your shoes and treading your own path. It was that idea that when I was at the stock exchange and when I was in, working in a traditional suit, most of the stuff was written about those people who have more money win, and those people who, I don't know. It was just this whole idea of you'll be happier when you're wealthier, and my view was it was always about to tread your own path, to do what you're passionate about, which is kind of what I ended up doing.
Which is kind of what you're still doing.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to No Filter. You can buy Scott's book, The Barefoot Investor, if you haven't already, and my book, Work-Strife Balance, which much fewer people have bought than Scott's book. You can buy them both at iBooks at apple.co/Mamamia. And this is the place that you can also see all the other shows that we do. We do about 20 different shows. If you're looking for more podcasts to listen to, and who isn't, face it, frankly, really? If you want to hear more from Scott, and why wouldn't you, you should visit barefootinvestor.com. And if you want all our podcasts in a different place on your phone, you can download the Mamamia podcast app. If you are looking for more to listen to right now, more interviews with fascinating people like Scott, scroll back through the No Filter feed and you can find my interviews with people like Richard Glover, Andrew Denton, Lee Sales, Bridget Delaney, who wrote an incredible book called Wellmania, where she tried all these wellness fads, and so we didn't have to, and she wrote about it. Such an interesting interview. There's also one of my personal favourites, Elizabeth Gilbert, and over 110 others. That should get you through any road trip. If you want to suggest a guest to be my 111th or 12th or 20th, or just ask a question, you can call the pod phone on 02 8999 9386, or if you're more of an email kind of person like I am, you can reach me at podcast@mamamia.com.au. Today's show was produced by the very delightful Eliza Ratliff for the Mamamia Women's Network, with the help of Luca Levine. I'm Mia Friedman. Lots of love.